On May 11, 2022, professional cyclist Colin Strickland was eating dinner with his friend and fellow cyclist Moriah Wilson at an outdoor burger restaurant, Pool Burger, in Austin, Texas. Colin lived in Austin, but Moriah was just in town visiting for a race that week. Unbeknownst to them, Colin's obsessive girlfriend, Kaitlin Armstrong, was spying on them from nearby. Kaitlin was planning to end Moriah's life that evening by using her 9mm handgun, which she had on her. The events that led up to this: 6 months prior, in October of 2021, Colin and Kaitlin separated for a month. During this period, they each started dating other people. Kaitlin was seeing guys from online dating sites, and Colin began a romantic relationship with Moriah. But because Moriah lived in San Francisco, she was only in town for a week, for a race, before returning home. 1 month later in November, even though Kaitlin had moved out, she and Colin got back together. But Colin maintained a relationship with Moriah, communicating with her through texts. Knowing that Kaitlin was jealous and upset about his relationship with Moriah, Colin would delete their text messages and had Moriah under a different name in his phone. Police concluded from the messages that Moriah was romantically involved with Colin, even while he was still dating Kaitlin. And now that Moriah was back in town, and she and Colin were spending time together, it made Kaitlin so upset, she intended to end Moriah's life that night. At 7:10 p.m., Colin and Moriah left the restaurant, and he drove her to her friend's house, where she was staying for the week, while in town. At the same time, Kaitlin followed behind them. She most likely did not know where Moriah was staying, so this was her chance to find out. The ride from the restaurant to Moriah's house was only 15 minutes. Parked in front of her house, Colin and Moriah sat in his car and talked. Colin never entered the house. At 7:30 p.m., Kaitlin texted Colin, saying she's going to yoga class, but in actuality she was parked just down the street, watching them. At 8:30 p.m., Moriah entered her home, and Colin drove off. At 8:37 p.m., as it became dark, Kaitlin pulled into the alley behind Moriah's house. There was only one way to enter the property from here, by jumping over the back fence. At 8:45 p.m., Kaitlin burst into Moriah's home through the rear door, confronting Moriah. Kaitlin then brandished the gun, and Moriah was pushed back into the restroom, where she fell on the floor and screamed as Kaitlin shot her 3 times, twice in the head, and once in the chest. Kaitlin then immediately left the scene, and drove off. At 9 p.m., Colin arrived home. And 20 minutes later, Kaitlin arrived at Colin's house. The timing matched perfectly, as Kaitlin stayed behind for 20 minutes to commit the murder. Then, at 9:54 p.m., Moriah's friend, Cash, who's the owner of the home where Moriah was staying, arrived to find Moriah unconscious and bleeding on the restroom floor. She immediately called 911.
My friend is staying with me, and I just walked in, and she's laying on the bathroom floor, and there's blood everywhere, and I don't know what happened.
Is she awake?
She's not awake. There's blood all over her face
Kaitlin?
and all on the back of her head.
Is she breathing?
No, she's not
Okay.
breathing.
I've got the paramedics on the way to help you. Stay on the line.
From here, police zeroed in on Colin, as he was the last person seen with Moriah. They interviewed him the following morning, and discovered he had a girlfriend, Kaitlin Armstrong, at the same time he was seeing Moriah. Police then reviewed the security camera footage from Moriah's neighbors, and discovered a black Jeep Grand Cherokee pulled into Moriah's alley minutes before the murder, then left immediately afterward. There was even a neighbor's doorbell camera which captured the audio of Moriah screaming before the 3 gunshots. Police then discovered that same Jeep Cherokee parked at Colin's house, as it's owned by Kaitlin. When police questioned Kaitlin, she refused to talk. At this point, Colin obtained a lawyer, who advised him to stop communicating with Kaitlin. And this is when Colin informed police that Kaitlin owned a SIG P365 handgun, which shoots 9mm rounds, which were the same caliber casings found at the scene of the crime. Colin even informed police Kaitlin recently went to the shooting range to practice. This is all the police needed to obtain an arrest warrant for Kaitlin, but at this point it was too late, because she had already fled the country using a fake passport. By tracking her Gmail, police found her 45 days later in Costa Rica, where she had changed her name and had several face operations to change her appearance. She was flown back to the US, where on November 16, 2023, Kaitlin Armstrong was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 90 years. This is a tragic case where a 26-year-old died. It garnered media attention, and a film was even made about the incident.